Hopefully that thing's working. Not too loud, right? I can't swing my chair. Well, I could swing it around. Doesn't matter about me. What? In a perfect world, I'd have everybody watching the shoreline and the coast and all the animals in the ocean, the sights, but oops. Oops. It is getting windy out there. Where we were, or where I was earlier this morning when I tried to do the live feed, there's some big waves. You got to get around, big rollers coming off the open Pacific. They have to get around to get to where I was. And then it's fairly sheltered, but if you don't stay on top of it and you stay in that sheltered bay, and then the wind starts screaming and picking up like it is, it's hell. Absolute hell to get back. And I'm sitting in this sheltered bay quite a ways inside the inlet now on an anchor. And the wind's really whipping. You can see the wind's moving the boat around. This is as sheltered as it's going to get. I guess what I'm saying is when the wind is this windy right here, it is ripping out where I was earlier this morning. But anyway, what do I got? I've got a long email. I don't recall reading this, or we'll see. This is from our friend Robert Duvall, alias, and he's been contributing for quite some time. Very, very knowledgeable, and he's done some frickin' due diligence and digging. Many people won't agree with what he has found, and that's fine. You always take from what you need or leave the rest, right? But he has found out a lot, all right? Now, see what he's got to say with this one. This is titled, Unraveling the Whole Watcher/Fallen Angel Fiasco. Hi, Steve. I'm putting this off, sort of, because doing this overview study relies on having foundational knowledge from which to get the correct perspective. People tend to reinterpret records, single words that alter the meaning and context of a single passage. I'm looking for what was originally intended to be conveyed. So if you don't really understand, for instance, the existence of upright, mostly bipedal animal hybrids, and you're trying to understand writings on this subject, you are going to come up with an interpretation that fits your perceptions of what is being said. I personally leave out as much of the spiritual interpretation of any given passage as I can, because once you introduce that aspect, the discussion goes 1,000 different ways depending on the beliefs of any one person. Just give me the developments in a historical setting and leave out what it meant. My exposure to our current situation and my fieldwork gave me the confidence to discuss these matters as a reality rather than a possibility. However one wishes to view the watchers, and however one wishes to view the angels and conflate the two or treat them separately, a few fundamentals are clear to me from the long coffee-filled studies. They fly, depicted with wings symbolically, but likely reside in craft typically. A UFO? They ordinarily just watch and report as their station or assigned position. They are not necessarily one particular race or species. Some don't even have the physical bodies ordinarily, but can take on physical form when it becomes necessary. Their presence here has been recorded by unknowing observers many, many times throughout our history, and their presence and actions have been depicted in various art forms in that history. Normally, they observe and report, but have also intervened in human affairs during conflicts or times of crisis to nudge the outcome favorably according to some idea or plan. Have knowledge that surpasses human intelligence and likely always will. Are not necessarily as good at judgment and restraint as we humans are. History has indicated this, as have studies on their instructions before coming down to earth versus what developed. We gained considerable knowledge early on directly from them, and thus our current foray into Organized civilization was germinated and assisted by them, beginning with the onset of the agricultural revolution, within which we were given both genetically enhanced seed and tools with which to grow and cultivate, and domestic animals to raise for food. I heard a boat. Precursors to settle into one location and support a structural population with skilled workers, providing goods and law and governance to have order, to eventually return to oversight and continued intervention when necessary to retain a human developmental trajectory. This ideal plan had problems, and those were anticipated according to scholars who went deeply into what had been conveyed to these watchers before they came here. They were warned not to stray far from this and convey to us more information than what was agreed upon, not to mix themselves into our affairs, and the reason given was that they did not possess the judgment necessary, but that humans were superior in that regard. It's like telling a kid you cannot get into that cookie jar on the counter within reach. Who was the agreement with, and who told them this? God, the highest station and most revered, the boss. What prevailed was a disaster, a shit show. The cryptid word being bantered around, usurping the historical context of what the hybrids actually are and the existence of these in our current times, as well as the apparent continued and isolated presence of giants in the Middle East. The cradle of human civilization indicates an inconvenient, for some, connection to our past. A past that has been buried and relegated to myth, so that power and control is consolidated within the institutions that tend to share in that control endeavor. The Watchers have knowledge we can only now begin to comprehend, but it goes way beyond where we currently are. It is vast. Their abilities are absolutely unmatched by humans, and we see it in the various creations they left with us. They left us with. Anyone who thinks the giants did not have these capacities, they do to varying degrees, as the Sasquatch also have it to varying degrees. It depends on which watcher genetics were involved and to what degree that genetic base has been watered down over time. I won't be commenting on the apparent ruins that are extremely ancient and technically concise, other than to say the Earth's histories are long and varied. We are not the first or only ones here, and we have never been alone. I was once told cryptically that there have been 8 chapters of civilization here. Who it was specifically, I have no idea, but one cannot dismiss the idea that at one time, giants who possess immense intelligence and bad judgment could have had a hand in some of it. I also will not go into such apparent subjects such as portals, other than to comment that the Order of the Watchers have at their disposal immensely powerful tools with which to do their jobs. And this idea that technology is not involved is now beyond ludicrous. I do not pretend to provide expertise on this, other than to say that if Watchers are here, and travel from here to the various levels of heaven, technology is absolutely involved. A UFO is a form of highly advanced technology. I've seen them flat out disappear after making adjustment maneuvers for position with a friend who is also an engineer. I've seen a lot both in that area of research and with regard to Sasquatch and other hybrids. My position is, now and probably won't change, that genetic engineering was utilized in the creation of the giants and animal hybrids that infested the earth and are still to one degree or another still here. Not all are still here. Time has taken its toll. I see in the abduction of humans by the Sasquatch a desperation to continue lines that are becoming less viable in the procreation sense. Although abductions have primarily been human females, males have also been taken for what can easily be construed as the same role as indicated by the actual accounts. Children are also abducted. None of it is okay. Getting back to the Watchers, I'm only introducing the matter as it has unfolded in the 30 years of looking into the matter. It took a very long time for me to transition from the basic alien perspective of UFO to this view of their continued presence and role regarding the human race and or development, and our development. My worldview has been smashed again and again, and each time was not any easier than the one before that. I had to take a year off or more to get away from dizzying realities that kept clubbing me in the head. It takes fortitude and endurance and a lot of blind stupidity to go back each time after a break. Emphasis on stupidity. What the hell am I going to do with this? When the disasters, the flood, and battles, assisted by a high order, ensued to rid the planet of these monsters, biblical term, the remaining giants were relegated to the depths. The Kandahar giant lived in the cave systems of the mountains of Afghanistan, for instance. It makes one wonder why we're really in Afghanistan and Iraq. The cradles of civilization and the likely place where those who imparted knowledge to us lived as well. What were we after? Why were soldiers sent to scout cave systems with orders to shoot low, then immediately high? They had no idea what they were getting into. We are entering the complex era of genetic engineering ourselves now, aren't we? A lot begins to come together when confronted with these facts. While the giants were relegated to the depths, the others, the animal hybrids, were allowed to stay under agreement. We still have dominion here until it is taken away. They are not supposed to interfere with our affairs per agreement. They are not a natural or a planned species here, but rather represent an era when the earth was genetically polluted and chaos reigned. Giants were the rulers and the human race suffered immensely. The animal hybrids, in my assessment, resulted from the genetic blending that gave us the giants. We need to test a giant to know that is the case. What I have determined is that the hybrids are not to interfere with us. And though many will try to tell the community that the Sasquatch is the original creation and the keepers, the record and the DNA work absolutely does not support that assertion. Some of these hybrids deceive. Certainly the giants did as much of that as necessary to get their way. They paid the price. Having this notion in my head has helped me. I was heavily zapped into vertigo. When I recovered, I came back and lectured them on their dominion and reminded them that they had no right by agreement to do what they had done, and that there were consequences for such actions. And I continued to do field work, and they began to come to my home in Washington, and then here in New Mexico. And I've never been bothered since. I was angry and adamant when I spoke to them. They know who God, bracket the boss, and bracket is. What we know so far is that the nuclear DNA seems to be consistent from Sasquatch to Dogman other than the animal content. Both have human mitochondrial DNA. Our physical features are not passed through mitochondrial DNA. The Sasquatch features are not from human genetics. They look somewhat human, and it is possible through blending with humans since the original creation that some of our nuclear genes are now in some of the genetic lines. But generally they are not human nor share our core nuclear genetics. We look like we do because both parents passed core nuclear genes to us. We have features from our lineage. Our mitochondrial DNA keeps us alive but does not give us features. I can only assume that our mitochondrial DNA was necessary to insert into the hybrids to keep them alive here on Earth. Our mitochondrial existing in both Sasquatch and Dogman is telling. It is likely predictable that the giants have it as well. Conclusion: the hybrids are genetically formulaic. We will know conclusively once we have tested a giant specimen. We'll also know more as more animal hybrid types are tested, but it's looking like the formula is intact. As this is but an introduction to the topic of the Watchers and what the implications are, know that I'm going ahead with further studies and getting a better handle on it. There will be more in the future on this. Rob Duvall. There you go, you guys. There you go. Take it from where you will or leave it. This man's done some digging. He's done some digging. Knows some people, been around, and has an intense interest and drive combination to get the truth, no matter what. And that's where he's ended up. All right? There you go. For all those listening, seriously trying to put your puzzle pieces together, you might want to listen to that one more time. Who's next? Who's next? We got the wheels turning, you guys? Oh man, I gotta go way down here, I think. Hold on a minute. Red. All right. Oops, sorry. That's been red. Hang with me for a minute. Check out the beach, you guys, while I scroll down to find where I left off with unreds. Man, I gotta go way down here. What's going on? Way down. There's so many in here. All right, this might sound familiar. It sounds familiar to me, but who knows? It's not marked as red, so I'm going in. 3 generations of experiences with Bigfoot in Ohio. Hope I haven't read this. We're going to find out. Dear Steve, I want to thank you for your willingness to provide a platform for the sharing of Bigfoot experiences. These life-changing events should be shared and told. Bless you for your courage and honesty. Too many people in today's world have lost sight of what older generations knew. The government is never going to admit this to us, any more than they are going to be honest about UAPs, UFOs. Very true. Kick them to the curb. I'm a 64-year-old woman who was born, raised, and lived most of my life in Ohio, and I want to share my family's encounters with you. My parents and grandparents are deceased. I have up till now kept our experiences quiet, out of respect for them, and only spoken with my sons about them. While my grandparents and parents all believed in Bigfoot's presence, none wished to be ridiculed or thought to be crazy. I could care less, and you are welcome to use my name. It's Linda Bowers. I know what I've seen and experienced. I know what is real. I've loved the woods and the outdoors, but not fooled myself as to what they may contain. Please forgive me for the length, but I want people to know Bigfoot is where you live. You don't have to go looking for them. You don't have to go to the mountains and remote areas. They are among us, doing quite well in rural Ohio. I grew up just 12 miles from Shawnee, where Dave got the story about the female hunter who saw a predator-type being which was see-through and shimmering. He included the incident in his movie. He's been wonderful with the work he's done. Our national parks are hiding a secret that we should all know before we go into them. Our woods are filled with phenomena we don't comprehend. There are many sightings of cryptids in Ohio, and in Allen County in particular. It is bountiful farmland in that part of Ohio and flat. You can see for miles across wheat, soybean, and corn fields. And there are a lot of dairy and hog farms, and farms that do hundreds of acres of grain farming. Large wooded areas dot the landscape, with many being virgin to this day. Deer everywhere, and coyotes are plentiful. The Ohio grassman, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or the boogeyman, whatever name you prefer, is alive and well too. You might think, what would Bigfoot be doing there? He has a bounty of food available, and he's been there hundreds of years, thriving. The times have changed greatly since my grandpa was born in 1898. He spent much time in the woods hunting and trapping. He was a raw fur dealer in our area. For those who don't know what that is, he would purchase the fox, raccoons, and muskrat, etc., that the hunters shot or trapped. Then he would skin them, tan, mount the pelts. He got to hear all the tales of the hunters for miles around. He was truly a skilled and experienced man in an art form and lifestyle that many have forgotten in today's society. I spent many nights watching him work and listening to his hunting tales. As the ornate coal-burning base burner warmed the fur shed, My grandpa's home when I was growing up was just across the road from a canal. Our village had been an old canal town with 3 locks. The Miami-Erie Canal was dug to get supplies through the Black Swamp area of Ohio, up to Fort Toledo, by creating a waterway from Cincinnati and the Ohio River. It was under construction from 1825 to 1845. The canal ran through the village of Spencerville, and the village was born as a supply stop. I do believe that one reason Bigfoot has been so prolific in Ohio is the huge area that originally was a swamp. My grandpa had some cattle, hotbeds from which he sold vegetable plants in the spring to gardeners, a huge garden for his family, and fruit trees on his property in Spencerville. He also owned his homestead where he was raised, some 25 miles away. My home is 2 pasture fields to the west. Sorry. He had a large garden, fruit bushes, and some grain fields that another farmer rented. Our home was at the end of a residential street and within the city limits. The next farm over was a dairy farm with chickens and grain fields and a large woods. In terms of food for Bigfoot, those 3 places provided a smorgasbord along with the canal for seafood. My first recollection of Bigfoot was one spring when a couple of them trampled my grandpa's garden after rain and left their prints everywhere. My grandpa was furious and asked my dad to sit guard for the next few nights with their guns in hopes of deterring further damage. I didn't realize exactly what happened. My mom had said animals trampled the garden, and my granny had told me some people trampled it. Next, I've been out past dusk playing hide and seek. I've been running and not being able to see well, and run into a guy wire. Hold on, I get a little itchy here. There we go. My eye had been swollen and bruised, which Granny had seen the next day. She asked what had happened. I said I'd been out past time to be in, hadn't seen it, and had run into the wire. She immediately was visibly shaken and shrieked, "What's the matter with you, child? Do you want the boogeyman to take you? Don't you know better than to be out after dark? They take children all the time. You know better than that. Didn't your mother tell you to be in every night before dark?" I replied that she had, and then I asked what she thought the boogeyman looked like. And Grandma told me he was very tall, big and strong, with long black hair all over him, and he stunk badly. Just then, my mother came into the room and asked Granny not to scare me. Granny replied that I needed to know the danger in being out after dark. Granny did not hesitate at all to tell me the boogeyman, as she called it, was a real threat. I was a light sleeper and was awakened at night regularly by an owl hooting. There was a huge dead tree in the fence row that ran behind our barn, and usually I would get out of bed and see the owl perched in the tree, and I'd watch it. One night I heard the hooting, but the owl was nowhere to be seen. It was a bright night, and to my horror, a large black person stepped out of the grown-up fence row near the dead tree and walked towards our barn. I was frightened to death. The next day I told my mother what I'd seen, and within a few weeks, my dad had cleared the fence row up and pulled the old fencing out. He also contracted the dead tree to be removed. My dad was the mayor of our town, and he would often hold council meetings. One such meeting, the dairy farmer who lived near us came to the meeting and reported that 2 of his young calves had been taken. He said he'd followed the footprints of the perpetrator. All of the council thought it highly unlikely that one person could walk out of the pasture, step over the fence, and walk off. Everyone concluded that the perpetrator had to have had at least 2 accomplices, whom the council agreed to look out for. My dad had assured the man that they would look into the incident, but told him his best bet would be to put in newer, higher fencing. When my dad relayed the meeting to my mom and me, he stated that he knew what had taken the man's calves. He also knew that no one would believe him if he told them. He said that my grandpa agreed with him that no human could carry 2 calves, one under each arm, and just step over a fence. There had to be there had been no other footprints found at the scene. Dad had gone to the neighbors to see the evidence. He surmised that no person in their right mind would go barefooted into a pasture and attempt to take calves without the mama cows going after them. He also felt that if it were a man who'd taken the calves, that he would have to set them down while he got over the fence, and they would have run off. The tracks had just stepped over the fence, apparently while carrying the calves. My next incident was at my friend's farm. We had decided to hike out to the pond. We walked through the barnyard and by the paddock where the horse was dozing. She admonished her dog to stay, and we headed out. We took an old cow path, past several fields, and got to an old cattle pasture no longer in use. We had to hike through it to get to the pond. The grass was probably 2 to 3 feet high, and the trees were thick and hundreds of years old. It was a beautiful area, and the mature trees provided shade and cover. We started through, and for no reason I could identify, felt dread. We were approximately halfway through the pasture when my friend told me to stop throwing stones at her. She said they hurt. I said I hadn't thrown anything. It seemed odd, but we weren't talking as close together at that point. I heard some stones hitting near me, and then a stone came down just in front of me. I told her we needed to get out of the pasture and run for home. My friend yelled out that we were leaving, and we were going to tell her father and brother. She yelled, "They will come with their guns and the dog. You'd better leave right now." I don't know what she thought was throwing the stones, but I know what I thought. We left as quickly as possible in the tall grass, and upon reaching the farm, we noticed that the horse, who'd been dozing when we left, was trotting around, snorting and shaking her head. When she would stop, she'd dig at the earth with her hoof and throw her head up and down. The dog was acting very upset, and he was barking and running around the barnyard. Next, a girlfriend and I were sleeping out in our yard, which is over 3 acres and a canvas tent. I believe that I was 12 or 13. It was midsummer. We'd been talking away when we heard something hit the metal trash cans that were kept by the barn. My friend was frightened and asked what had made the noise, and I said, "Probably raccoon." Then I began to smell a skunk-like smell and assumed it was a skunk. My girlfriend said she wanted to make a run for the house. She was frightened of the critters. I said, "No, we don't want to get sprayed by a skunk." I no sooner said that, and I heard the lid being removed from one of the cans and dropped. I began to be fearful and said, "Skunks can't take the lids off cans." My friend said, "Shut up, it's not skunks. Whoever it is, they are using language. Who would be in your garbage and talking?" I replied that there were migrant workers now on some of the farms, but they were some distance away, and it didn't make sense for them to come and steal food from the garbage. "That's not Spanish. I know Spanish," my girlfriend had said. We listened intently, and the odor grew worse all the while. For lack of a better description, I can only say it sounded as if the two of them were speaking samurai chatter. They were having a conversation while digging through the garbage, and would soon be done, that much I knew. Once again, my friend wanted to run for the house. I told her no, they would see and hear us and perhaps catch us. I knew we could not run a Bigfoot, though I didn't tell her that I suspected that's where they were. I told her we needed to be absolutely quiet and pretend we were sleeping. Perhaps they would not bother us if they thought we didn't know they were there. I knew they would see the tent. However, since they had to walk right by the area we were in to get to the garden, I knew they would smell us when they stopped digging through the can. She wanted to know what we should do if they try to get into the tent. I told her to scream at the top of her lungs if they opened the flap. If they only touched or pushed on it, to pretend to be asleep. The moment came when we heard the garbage can lid replaced. I was so scared, it truly felt like we might not survive. I shut my eyes and tried to breathe quietly. I remember feeling the ground move as they passed. They didn't stop and walked on towards the garden. We were too scared to move or peek out, and I know they knew we were in the tent. It would have been impossible for them not to smell us. I'm certain they knew we were scared, and so were my dogs. The dogs didn't make a peep or come out of their houses. Crazy. Crazy. The last occurrence that I was made aware of happened 24 years later when I was 37 years old. And I in no way feel that they hadn't been coming. There just hadn't been talk about them. I was visiting my mom and dad with my sons, who were 14 and 4 years old, and my 4-year-old had wanted a pear from Grandpa's tree when we got there. I told him he could have one. It was early fall. I asked his older brother to take him out and lift him up to get one off the tree. They came back just a few minutes later. My younger son was disgusted, and he said he didn't get one. I asked my older son why he hadn't been able to get one. I thought perhaps my younger son had acted up and my older son had then refused to lift him. But there aren't any. Anywhere, he replied. What do you mean? I wanted to know. Usually they were all over the ground, and the tree would be heavy with fruit. All the currant and gooseberry bushes are gone, too. My oldest son had informed me. I was shocked. I went inside and asked my mom why my dad had pulled the fruit bushes and where all the pears had gone. She was suffering from Parkinson's at the time and sometimes said things that didn't make sense. She said, "Your dad was furious that those beings with the big feet had picked all the berries and taken all the pears. He said he wasn't feeding them anymore and ripped all the bushes out." I asked her what things with big feet. She said to ask him when he came home. Once Dad and I were alone and walking through the yard, I asked him. He said it had rained and the soil had been damp. He said there were footprints in the garden everywhere. I asked if he meant shoe prints. He said no. They were bare feet, and when I put my foot in them, it looked small. He told me that in one night they had picked the bushes clean of currants and gooseberries. One night. He said they'd also taken all the pears on the ground and picked the tree completely as well. I asked if he'd been having fruit taken each year, and he replied he had. He said that it usually wasn't this bad. He told me that at his age, which was his late 60s, and with Mom's illness, he didn't feel safe anymore growing food that enticed them. He said, I don't want them here. I know it's Bigfoot and it scares me now. I'm chopping the pear tree down next week. Wow. I don't know the people who reside in those places any longer, Steve. However, I am certain that Bigfoot, or the boogeyman, as Granny used to call him, still makes his way through the dairy farm and the gardens along the way to the canal, where he fishes. Keep up the good fight and spread the word. My deep appreciation to you, Linda Bowers. Linda, the deep appreciation is swung right around and back at you big time. Thank you so much for sharing those family stories and all the time it took you to donate to all the people here through me to share it. Thank you so much. Ohio, is it the Ohio Grassman too, wasn't it, you guys? The Ohio Grassman, I think. And there you go. More club members. More patterns. Pears. That stands out too. There's been more than a few times people have reported their pear trees gone picked clean. Apples too, but pears really stands out in my head. Not that I give a shit what they prefer to eat at this stage of the game. Okay, what's this one? One more. Mark, this is red. So many family histories, isn't there? Over the years, and they finally come forward and share here. Oh, man. Been up a while. It's chilly still. Sucks. No fish. Nobody's catching fish today. This next email is titled, "It Threw Rocks at Me and Waited for Me." Yep, boat coming. Wait for the boat to rip by, then I'll continue on. All right, here we go. It threw rocks at me and waited for me. P.S. I forgot to add that there weren't any animal noises that night either. It was about 70 degrees and there were no frogs or crickets chirping. All right, that's 2 emails in one. That was the second one. Hello, Steve. I'd just like to preface with a few things. First off, I love your channel and your no bullshit attitude towards life. I try to live my life the same way. Thanks for what you do. Right on, man. Don't stop. Appreciate the kind words. Before I started watching your channel, I must have suppressed this memory, even though it only happened in 2019. I'm 26 now. Every detail came flooding back after you told your story about one of those things waiting for you. Yeah. In early fall in Missouri, see, we call it Missouri. When you live down there, it's Missouri. I said that a few times too, right? My roommate's friends, there were 3 of them, 5 of us together, invited us for an overnight fishing trip somewhere he didn't want to tell us. We were both down for an adventure, so we went. I was a stoner back then, so I don't really remember the drive there. Only that it was about 2 hours from where we lived, and I'd never been there before. Even though I was following my friend's vehicle, they were taking what felt like the long way to where we were going. I've tried finding it on a map as it was some sort of state park, but with no luck. We finally get there, and the guy told us it was a hike to get to the lake, even though we passed 2 ponds to get there, which I found odd. We make it to the lake after dark, about a 20-minute walk through some fields, and we decide to build a fire, smoke, and cook some hot dogs on a fire. It had rained that morning, so we had trouble starting a fire, I had some lighter fluid in my car, so I hiked back. It was a full moon, so I could see very well, and couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched as soon as I left the timber and walked through the open hay fields. Kind of spooked, I walked faster to the car. I hunt and fish myself often, and I get that feeling all the time, so I shrugged it off. No fear or dread. I grab what I need from the car and I walk back, but as soon as I get about halfway there, something was throwing rocks at me. I rationalized it with walnuts falling from a tree as it was breezy and I was near an island of trees in a field. I stopped to catch my breath right around that island, and I heard a large twig snap, and then something else thrown at my feet. And that's when I picked up a rock. And that's when I got the most intense feeling of dread and panic I've ever had my entire life. It was like I was having a panic attack times 10. I started running towards the timber where my friends were, and I could hear it following me through the trees. I almost shit myself. I never saw anything, and it sure as hell was there. I never told my friends again, and I rationalized it as being all in my head. The guy whose spot it was told us there were some really big fish in that pond, and as if on some cue, something huge splashed in the water. I know what a large fish jumping sounds like, and Steve, this sounded like a very large rock being thrown into deep water. All the guy said was, "See, I told you, let's go to the water." And that pretty much sums up the experience, man. We didn't catch any fish, and periodically we'd hear the same splash that I rationalized to my friends as being a beaver or something dragging stuff into the water. The only other thing that happened is the guy who brought us heard something was behind us when we were fishing on the dike, and I could hear it run away when he got to the trees with his flashlight. I guess that could have been anything. Steve, the worst part was we weren't in a rocky area, It was mostly hay fields as far as timber, so I think I had to go find rocks to throw in the water since it was so spread apart. I'm a believer now. I still hunt and fish, but I try to avoid being by myself now. I don't ever want to see one, and I never want to feel hunted again. Thanks for your time. Keep up the good work. It's turkey season here in about a week, and I'm stoked. Feel free to share my story if you'd like, Jacob. Shared, my man. Shared, my friend Jacob. I appreciate that. Somewhere, somebody's shaking their head in agreement with what you experience as being their experience too. Guaranteed. And there you go, you guys. Oh, What should I do now? I should probably go home. But shit. Then it's an absolute fail if I quit. No fish today for anybody. The water's cloudy. Video sucked. Oh, and side note, for the live stream fishing by the day, you have to get a specific Starlink dish sealed, protected from salt water, and it's $250 a frickin' month to put it on a boat or whatever, and it will work 100% as you spin around and do everything. I don't know if I want to do that bad enough to do that. I don't know. Or should I just try to do the Starlink when I'm on the anchor, jigging in that spot? I don't know. Decisions, right? Although it does excite me, and I think it's a lot of fun to be able to take people on adventure and show them what's up in the middle of nowhere when it's going down. That is freaking awesome. So I got some thinking to do about that one. That's a lot of money. $250 a month. Come on. But we'll see. Anyway. Oh yeah, Sarah has launched a great big sale on her store. I think she sent out a whole bunch of emails. I think I posted about it. And the discount code is HUNT20. HUNT20. The discount code. I'll put the link to her store in the description below. And you can hit that if you're interested. It's all her. It's all her. So if you want to support Sarah, please go visit her howtohuntstore.com and take advantage of that big sale she's put on. And she's going to be coming out with some new goodies here. Something that'll be very interesting. I'm not going to do the spoiler alert thing. But something very, very interesting is coming from her in that department and her store. What else? I think that's about it. I should probably go looking for bears. I saw a huge bear last evening. Huge. Following a sow down the beach not far from the boat. Saw another one this morning. Pretty big one following a sow. They're rutting like crazy right now. Still, hunting season, spring season still open for them. They can hunt them here till June 15th or something, but it's so tense, especially when I see a great big monstrous bear. It's just knee jerks. You want to go after them, but I don't need a bear right now. Maybe next spring. We'll see. But that's about it, I think. Probably had a bunch of other shit I want to talk about, but this should suffice for now. Oh, there's an otter coming down the beach over there. I'm not going to have enough time to get him on video. Damn it. A little otter. He just came out of the forest, crossed down the beach into the rocks, and I guess he's jumping in. I guess they must put their pups in the timber, I'm guessing, right? Obviously, you can't give birth underwater. So he must have a nest up in that timber. That'd be cool to see that, wouldn't it? Who knows what you guys saw on the beach behind me? You never know. Something or nothing. I guess I'll find out later on. But share my story at howtohunt.com. Just get it out. Me, hear this channel somewhere else. I don't give a shit. Just get it off your chest and get it out in the open. All right? Believe me, it's painless. Do it. There's way, way, way too many people know the truth now, right? It's not fiction. It's not phenomenon. It's not hearsay. It's fact. It's our truth. It's our reality. It's been successfully hidden from us for how long? Intentionally from the so-called education system. Fuck. Yeah. There you go. Email me. And I will be back. Should be back tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to try the live again until I make a decision. Unless the weather's conducive, like it's dead flat calm, sunny out. And I could sit on the anchor and jig in one position so it doesn't throw off the connection. I don't know, we'll see. We'll see. I really want to take everybody fishing all day, especially when the action's on too. It'll be fun for the anglers stuck at home, right? And you can somehow watch while you're working or whatever you're doing. I'll be back later. This is a live squid. Oh, hey, he's biting me. We put 2 hooks in them, underneath the skin, and then set them down the bottom. And then the salmon basically gobbled it up. One there. One just under the skin there so you don't kill him. And you set him down, he swims around. Tons of bait is stupid down there.